From the Ukraine-Russia war, where Russian President Vladimir Putin has challenged US President Donald Trump and has begun a heavy offensive in Ukraine. This comes as the second round of peace talks are scheduled to take place on June 2nd. We will also tell you how India is cracking down on Pakistan's spy networks, with security agencies busting and arresting several individuals who are linked to Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence, or the ISI. From West Asia, Israel has accepted a new US proposal for ceasefire with Hamas. However, despite talks of peace, Israel continues to bomb Gaza. On the show tonight, we ask, can peace take hold while bombs still fall? All that and a lot more lined up for you on the show tonight. Let's get you started. Russia is pounding Ukraine with airstrikes, artillery and missile barrages. Russian President Vladimir Putin has challenged US President Donald Trump and begun a heavy offensive in Ukraine. But as the bombs keep falling, time is quickly running out for outgunned, outmanned Ukraine, even as second round of talks is scheduled in Turkey on June 2nd. Russia says it has halted the Ukrainian advance in the regions of Sumy, Kharkiv and Donetsk. Moscow claims its forces have taken control of at least 3 key settlements in Kharkiv, adding that they have intercepted over 120 Ukrainian drones and multiple guided bombs in just a span of 24 hours. Russian forces also launched a drone attack overnight, targeting Izmail, which is Ukraine's biggest port on the Danube River. The town is extremely important for Ukraine's imports, located just across the river from Romania. And according to the region's governor, a post office branch was destroyed in the Russian drone attack. And footage from the State Emergency Service of Ukraine also showed firefighters extinguishing a fire at the site. A wave of Russian missiles and drone attacks also struck the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv, causing severe destruction and injuring at least 11 people. Firefighters here, too, could be seen dousing a huge ball of fire. But while the barrage of missiles and drones continue, another kind of fire is threatening to erupt behind closed doors. Washington appears to have grown tired of Kiev's hesitation over peace negotiations. Trump's special envoy Keith Kellogg has warned Kiev against skipping the peace talks scheduled for June 2nd in Istanbul, also making it very clear that Russia's long-standing objection to NATO's expansion towards its border, including Ukraine, is not entirely irrational, adding that Washington has no intention of bringing Ukraine into NATO anytime soon. It's perhaps a sobering reality for Kiev that has for years clung to the hope of NATO membership as its ultimate security guarantee. Meanwhile, the Kremlin says it is ready for a second round of direct talks, and Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov brushed off Ukraine's demands for a written memorandum as unconstructive.
Россия как раз и предложила в понедельник встретиться в Стамбуле и начать обсуждение этих проектов. Поэтому требовать медленно, это все неконструктивно. Здесь нужно или подтверждать готовность продолжать переговоры.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's still waiting for a formal document that lays out Russia's real position on the talks.
Even the so-called memorandum they promised and seemingly prepared for more than a week has still not been seen by anyone. Ukraine didn't get it. Our partners didn't get it. Even Turkey, which was hosting the first meeting, didn't get the new agenda.
Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron has now openly challenged Washington. Macron said, if Russia proves it is unwilling to make peace, then the United States, in his words, must confirm its commitment to impose sanctions on Russia, calling it, and I'm quoting Macron here, credibility test for America.
I do not believe that the post-Kiev situation is a credibility issue for the Europeans. I think it is a test of credibility for the Americans. We Europeans have been consistent for 3 years. We sanction Russia, we help Ukraine, and we do not want the escalation leading to a new world war.
So the United States has drawn a line. France is raising the stakes. And Ukraine, it is simply running out of options at this point of time. A Russian company is rewarding Russian pilots who downed American F-16 jets over Ukraine. But the real story today isn't about the cash. It's Russia's tightening grip on the skies. Such is the situation that Ukraine isn't using its prize fighters gifted by its European allies to the skies. Russian air superiority is sending a chilling message to Kiev and the West. Our next report telling you more.
The downing of the US-made F-16 fighter jet in Ukraine has electrified Russian forces and sent shockwaves through Western military circles. While headlines focus on the $195,000 reward handed out to 12 Russian servicemen, the truth is far more consequential. Russia's air dominance over the battlefield is becoming a defining factor in the war's next phase. Russian air power has evolved rapidly since the early days of the conflict. Advanced Su-35 and Su-57 fighters now patrol the skies with increasing impunity, leveraging superior radar, electronic warfare and long-range missiles to keep Ukrainian and NATO-supplied aircraft at bay. Moscow is also using its fleet of Tu-95 and Tu-160 bombers to rain missiles on Ukraine. Russia's integrated air defense network, bolstered by S-400, has become a nearly impenetrable shield, forcing Ukrainian pilots to fly low and take enormous risks just to survive. The arrival of F-16s was supposed to shift the balance, giving Kyiv a fighting chance against relentless Russian airstrikes. Instead, the battlefield equations show that taking on the Russian Air Force isn't easy. It's also a warning to any future Western aircraft entering the fray. The message is clear: the skies over Ukraine remain a deadly place for anyone challenging Russian supremacy. As Ukraine pleads for more advanced jets and air defense systems, Russia's Air Force continues to adapt, innovate, and dominate. The bounty is a footnote. The real prize is control of the air, a prize that for now remains firmly in Russian hands. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
US President Donald Trump has accused China of violating the initial trade agreement reached earlier this month, shaking global investor confidence and sparking fresh concerns about the stability of US-China economic ties. In a fiery post on Truth Social, Trump has declared, and I quote him here, China, perhaps not surprisingly to some, has totally violated its agreement with US, so much for being Mr. Nice, end quote. The claim comes just 2 weeks after both nations agreed to a 90-day pause on mutual tariffs, offering temporary relief to markets. And that agreement was hailed as a breakthrough in easing escalating trade tensions between US and China that had resulted in steep tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars in imports. However, the White House now alleges that China has failed to uphold its end of the agreement, reigniting fears of a renewed trade war. While no specific violations were detailed, officials say that the US fulfilled its commitment and that China's compliance has slowed majorly since the truce has been announced. Well, markets responded swiftly with US futures going down, signaling investor unease over the possibility of renewed tariff hikes or worsening trade ties. Experts say the latest development could impact everything from consumer prices to supply chains, especially if tariff talk collapse. Talks between the two nations appear to have stalled, with officials suggesting further progress between US and China may require direct engagement between the presidents of both the countries. If you thought India's crackdown on Pakistani spies ended with YouTuber Jyoti Malhotra or the Pakistan High Commissioner staffer Danish, then you're wrong. In fact, it's getting bigger and far more complex than imagined. A nationwide hunt in effect. Post the Pahalgam terror attack on April 22nd and its military strikes Operation Sindoor, India has been running a massive counterintelligence drive nationwide, with security agencies busting and arresting several individuals who are allegedly linked to Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence or the ISI. And the rising numbers are only connecting the dots of what seems to be a rather elaborate spy ring here in India, spread from the north to the south, east to the west of the country. Suspect number 1. A CRPF official. In the very latest, according to a report by the Indian Express, an assistant sub-inspector of the Central Reserve Police Force, earlier posted with a battalion in Jammu and Kashmir's Pahalgam, has been nabbed for allegedly sharing key information with Pakistan intelligence officers posing as TV journalists. And this happened over the last 2 years. The information shared by him involved key details, to name some, such as Union Home Minister Amit Shah's visit to J&K, that's hours after the Pahalgam terror attack, or the closing down of 50 tourist spots, as well as the movement and strength of CRPF troops. Suspect number 2, Qasim. A 34-year-old man from Mewat in Haryana arrested on charges of spying for Pakistan's intelligence agency. As per reports, Qasim travelled to Pakistan twice in 2024, where he allegedly received espionage training. Suspect number 3, Ravi Murlidhar Verma, a 27-year-old engineer arrested in Maharashtra's Thane for allegedly leaking confidential, important information to a Pakistani operative through WhatsApp and Facebook. And this happened between November 2024 and March 2025. Reports suggest that Verma was honey-trapped by a fake Facebook profile posing as a woman. Apart from that, a man from Rajasthan was arrested by the Delhi police for aiding Pakistani intelligence operatives allegedly by supplying Indian mobile SIM cards for espionage activities. The list goes on. Another man, Shakur Khan, a 49-year-old Rajasthan state government employee, was detained in Jaisalmer. The suspect had visited Pakistan several times and is also believed to share a connection with a Congress leader. From Uttar Pradesh, 3 people have been arrested for allegedly spying and arranging funds for ISI. Whether or not linked, that's unclear at this point of time. Just a week ago, Gujarat ATS apprehended a suspect in Kutch. Interestingly, besides hailing from different regions, different demographies, these individuals hail from different backgrounds, from travel vloggers, students, businessmen, workers, and contract staff at security facilities. They all are facing charges ranging from espionage cross-border smuggling to supporting hostile activities. Their alleged link to ISI is perhaps the only common thread. Not just that, India's crackdown is not just limited to spy ring, but also suspected terror networks, with the counterintelligence unit of the Jammu and Kashmir police launching multiple raids across the J&K Valley. According to officials, suspicious technical signatures were traced at different locations in districts of Budgam, Pulwama, Kupwara, Shopian and Srinagar, underscoring India's commitment towards cracking down against terror. Prime Minister Narendra Modi at a rally in Kanpur said, Operation Sindoor is not over yet. Take a listen.
ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के दौरान जो दुश्मन गिड़गिड़ा रहा था वो किसी धोखे में न रहे। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर अभी खत्म नहीं हुआ है।
So, how are the suspects being tracked exactly? Social media, SIM cards, IP addresses are only some of the modes being used to hunt them down. And the word is, there are many more under scrutiny as of now. Israel has accepted a new US proposal for a ceasefire with Hamas, a move that makes the US optimistic about ending the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. Yet, hours after it was announced, Israel continued to bomb Gaza. On Friday, Palestinians fled the scene of an Israeli strike in Gaza City, which caused multiple injuries, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry, that is. In Jabalia, videos from the scene of the Israeli strike showed Palestinians rummaging through the rubble of damaged buildings. A young girl was seen salvaging some bracelets. Another young boy, some pillows. At least 12 people, including 3 women, were reportedly killed overnight in the strikes on Jabalia. Videos showed displaced Palestinians suffered acute injuries from Israeli airstrikes that have destroyed countless communities in the Strip and caused great human loss and heartbreaks to Palestinians. As Israel's blockage of international aid continues, Gaza's residents said that they are being robbed of the hope for a peaceful life.
People heard news about a ceasefire. Then civilians sleeping in their homes, unarmed, civilians sleeping in their homes, were surprised by random shelling. And here they are, civilians cut in pieces. We have stopped calling on Arab and Muslim countries. We appeal to every free person in this world.
Israel's killings of Palestinians in Gaza has left behind a horrifying trail of death. And for those who have survived, it's a daily ritual of blanket bombings, adding horror on horror for over 601 days now. Palestinians in Gaza have endured hunger, thirst, displacement, and relentless aerial strikes.
Last night they said there would be a truce at 9 p.m. Suddenly at 12:30 a.m. the vision changed. At 12:30 a.m. instead of feeling joy, I looked up and saw martyrs, some with their heads flying, some with their hands flying, dead children on the streets.
The Israeli military also released footage that it claimed showed troops operating in the Gaza Strip. In a statement, the Israeli army said troops continue to combat Hamas militants in Khan Yunis. Just a day ago, on Thursday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed that his government has accepted a US proposal for a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release. The proposal does not require Israel to commit to ending its 19-month offensive in Gaza, but it requires both Israel and Hamas to engage in talks for long-term truce. The United States, Egypt and Qatar will serve as guarantors of the ceasefire deal. And now Hamas says it is reviewing the new proposal that the United States says has been signed off on by Israel. The group has said that the proposal in its current form will only result in more killings in Gaza. So what exactly does the US proposal say? According to news agency Reuters, the US plan proposes a 60-day ceasefire and the release of 28 Israeli hostages alive or dead in the first week. In exchange, Israel will release 1,236 Palestinian prisoners and the remains of 180 dead Palestinians. The truce document that says the plan is guaranteed by US President Donald Trump and mediators Egypt and Qatar includes sending humanitarian aid to Gaza as soon as Hamas signs off on the ceasefire agreement. So as of now, the ball really is in Hamas's court. The Palestinian group has told Reuters that it is reviewing the plan and will respond by Friday or Saturday. Remember, Israel resumed its military offensive in March following the collapse of the US-backed ceasefire that had temporarily halted fighting for 2 months. In total, Israel's military campaign in Gaza has killed more than 53,000 Palestinians. And as the bombings on Gaza continues to rise, so does the outrage. Over 300 celebrities in the United Kingdom, including artists, actors, singers, doctors, and even a Holocaust survivor, have come together to say, enough is enough. In an open letter addressed to British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Grammy-winning singer Dua Lipa, Golden Globe-winning actor Brian Cox, and BAFTA-winning actor Benedict Cumberbatch joined several other noted stars in demanding that the United Kingdom should end its complicity in the horrors in Gaza. The letter released on Thursday calls on the United Kingdom to immediately suspend all arms sales to Israel, ensure unrestricted humanitarian aid into Gaza, and also broker a permanent ceasefire. It argues, and I quote here, words will not feed Palestinian children. This complicity is not inevitable. It is a choice. The signatories accused the UK government of enabling Israel's military campaign, saying that UK-made components may be, and I'm quoting here, destroying families in seconds, which the UK has been supplying to Israel. The appeal from the stars come on the same day as Israel announced plans to legalize 22 settlements in the occupied West Bank, while continuing its strikes on Gaza. Let's now tell you what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. On board INS Vikrant, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has sent out a message to Pakistan that Operation Sindoor is not just a military action, but India's frontal assault against terrorism. Also, we will tell you about India's women warriors who defended border posts for 3 days during Operation Sindoor and the first batch of women NDA cadets who have graduated today. Finally, we will tell you how Bangladesh women's rights reforms are now facing Islamist backlash. Well, there could be a new point of rift between China and US. American far-right activist Laura Loomer has called for the deportation of Chinese President Xi Jinping's daughter from United States soil. Loomer, who is a supporter of US President Donald Trump, has demanded the deportation. Taking to Twitter, she stated, and I'm quoting here, "Sources tell me PLA guards from the CCP provide her with private security on US soil in Massachusetts," unquote. Now, this demand comes one day after US Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that the United States will begin aggressively revoking visas of Chinese students. The US State Department declared that America will not tolerate Chinese exploitation of universities or theft of research. Take a listen.
The United States, I further can say here, will not tolerate the CCP's exploitation of US universities or theft of US research, intellectual property, or technologies to grow its military power, conduct intelligence collection, or repress voices of opposition. The Trump administration is focused on protecting our nation and our citizens by upholding our national security and public safety through our visa process, obviously very openly and transparently applied by Secretary Marco Rubio.
Xi Jinping's daughter, Xi Mingze, has maintained an increasingly private existence, with most details of her life shrouded in secrecy. The Chinese president's daughter studied at Harvard University in 2010 under a pseudonym. She graduated in 2014 with a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and reportedly returned to Beijing. But some reports suggest she returned to Harvard for graduate studies in 2019. It would be interesting to hear now from White House what they have to say on Loomer's demand. Loomer is a prominent Trump supporter. In 2020, she ran for Congress in Florida's 21st district as a Republican contestant. Despite winning the Republican primary, Loomer lost the election. 2 years later, she challenged Representative Daniel Webster, a Florida Republican, in a primary but was unsuccessful. Shifting focus to China now. Today, it has issued a fresh warning to the United States. On Friday, Beijing condemned U.S. arms sales to Taiwan, warning that such actions could inflame tensions across the Taiwan Strait. This comes amid reports that Washington plans to ramp up its weapons support for Taipei to levels higher than those seen during Trump's first term. On Friday, a spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry warned Washington to stop arming Taiwan immediately. At a daily news briefing in Beijing, spokesperson Lin Jian said such arms deals create new factors for tension in the Taiwan Strait.
中方坚决反对美国向中国台湾地区出售武器，敦促美方恪守一个中国原则和中美3个联合公报。 特别是817公报的规定，停止售台武器，停止制造台海局势紧张因素。中方捍卫国家主权和领土完整的决心。
The sharp response follows reports that the U.S. plans to increase weapons sales to Taipei to levels exceeding $18.3 billion during President Trump's first term. According to Reuters, the arms sales are aimed at deterring China as it intensifies military pressure on the self-ruled island. If these sales do ramp up, they could ease concerns over Trump's future commitment to Taiwan, but also add new friction to an already tense U.S.-China ties. According to unnamed U.S. officials cited by Reuters, U.S. arms sales to Taiwan over the next 4 years could surpass those during Trump's previous term. Taiwan's presidential office says Taipei is committed to strengthening its self-defense and increasing military deterrence while continuing close cooperation with the United States. Taiwan's defense ministry is yet to comment on the reports of the new arms sales, but what we do know is that Taipei aims to raise its defense spending to 3% of GDP this year, and that's through a special defense budget. But Taiwan's parliament, controlled by opposition parties, passed budget cuts earlier this year that threatened to hit defense spending. According to Reuters, the US is also pressing members of Taiwan's opposition parties to not oppose the government's efforts, and that is to increase defense spending. The US is Taiwan's most important global backer as well as arms supplier, even though there are no formal diplomatic ties between the two countries. Remember, China has vowed to reunify with the self-ruled island by force if required. Taiwan's government rejects Beijing's sovereignty claims, saying only the island's people can decide their future. Past reports suggest that Taiwan is exploring a multi-billion-dollar arms purchase from the US, focusing on missiles, munitions and drones, so that it can improve its ability to defend itself. And that's if or should China invade. For years, China has been ramping up military pressure on Taiwan to assert its sovereignty claim. The island is home to important chip manufacturing that is critical to the global economy, and ramping up military activity around Taiwan is not the only thing China is doing. It has also issued threats. Just yesterday, China's defense ministry slammed Washington, and I'm quoting here, continuously expanding its military buildup, this time in outer space. China slammed US as it presses ahead with Trump's ambitious Golden Dome project, slamming US for wanting to deploy space-based weapons. China accused US of trying to stoke an arms race in outer space. Beijing warned that US actions could open a Pandora's box with rising tensions over Taiwan and new accusations about militarizing space. The friction between Washington and Beijing seems to only be escalating on multiple fronts. Will it end in a military conflict around Taiwan? Well, that's the question we ask tonight. On September 26, 1983, the Soviet Union's early warning system detected a barrage of US nuclear missiles appeared to be incoming. Protocol dictated a swift and devastating counterattack. But one man, duty officer Stanislav Petrov, chose to wait. He disobeyed the orders, trusted his instinct and not the machine. And his judgment stopped what could have been an all-out nuclear war, and most likely the end of the world. Now fast forward to today. In China, researchers at the China Institute of Atomic Energy have manufactured an AI system that claims to verify nuclear warheads with pinpoint accuracy. According to a peer-reviewed study, this technology uses deep learning to distinguish actual warheads from decoys without revealing the weapon's internal design. The Chinese scientists say it could redefine arms control verification and support their position in global disarmament talks. While this AI model claims to eliminate deception, it introduces a new kind of risk: technological overconfidence. But before we get there, what's this AI system all about? The AI system relies on a multiple-stage procedure combining cryptography and nuclear physics. During this procedure, researchers generate millions of virtual nuclear components, with some containing weapons-grade uranium and others with lead-enriched materials. The deep learning network, it puts forth high accuracy in distinguishing real warheads from the fake ones. The study also revealed that it could reduce the odds of deception to almost zero. The AI system's linchpin lies in its ability to verify chain reaction capability without exposing the warhead's design details. But here's the catch. The AI system did all these calculations based entirely on machine interpretation. And what if it's wrong? What if there are glitches? The researchers themselves conceded that the AI system also suffers from multiple drawbacks, pointing out that excessive dependence on electronic systems, it further creates vulnerabilities. So what if, like in 1983, the system detects a nuclear attack, but this time there's no human to question it? Because sometimes survival can depend not just on technology, but purely on human intelligence. On board India's first indigenously built aircraft carrier, INS Vikrant, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh sent out a stern message to Pakistan that any act of terror from Pakistan will be considered an act of war. In a clear message on India's stance on national security and its readiness to respond decisively, Rajnath Singh said, Operation Sindoor is not just a military action, but India's frontal assault against terror.
को जब समझ लेने की जरूरत है, आतंकवाद के जिस खतरनाक खेल को वह आज़ादी के समय से ही खेलता आ रहा है, उसकी मियाद अब खत्म हो चुकी है। अब जब भी पाकिस्तान भारत के खिलाफ किसी आतंकवादी हरकत को शह देगा, तो न केवल उसका खामियाजा उसे भुगतना पड़ेगा, बल्कि हर बार की तरह उसे हार का भी सामना करना ही पड़ेगा।
Rajnath also called on Pakistan to hand over designated terrorist Masood Azhar and Hafiz Saeed to India, adding that the two terrorists not only on the list of most wanted terrorists in India, but also on the UN's list of designated terrorists. He further asserted discussions with Pakistan will focus solely on terrorism and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir.
पाकिस्तान के हक में यही बात होगी कि वह अपनी जमीन पर चल रही आतंकवाद की नर्सरी को अपने हाथों से उखाड़ देंगे। इसकी शुरुआत उसे हाफिज सईद और मसूद अजहर जैसे आतंकवादियों को भारत के हाथों में सौंपने से करनी चाहिए। यह दोनों न केवल भारत में मोस्ट वांटेड टेररिस्ट की सूची में हैं, बल्कि ये यूनाइटेड नेशंस की डेजिग्नेटेड टेररिस्ट की लिस्ट में भी शामिल हैं।
Lauding the Indian Navy's decisive yet silent role in Operation Sindoor, Rajnath Singh credited the carrier battle group of keeping Pakistan's military on the defensive during India's counter-terror operations. Commissioned in 2022 by Prime Minister Modi, INS Vikrant is India's first indigenously built aircraft carrier and a powerful symbol of self-reliance in defense manufacturing. The deployment of INS Vikrant is seen as a crucial step towards reinforcing India's naval capabilities in the Indo-Pacific region. Is marital rape an act of crime? Can women be entitled to property and land rights? Should polygamy be ruled out? These are not rhetorical questions, but questions that confront modern-day Bangladesh. In the face of growing demonstrations that have divided camps, on one hand, women are rallying in streets in numbers demanding equal access, equality, rights and representation, basic dignity. On the other, Islamist radicals are acting as a foil to the progress, branding these reforms a threat to faith, tradition and moral order. And at the center of the controversy stands Muhammad Yunus himself, the head of Bangladesh's interim government, who has two choices before him. Number one, to stand by the women or abandon them to radical forces. Sure, women's reforms make for a good election issue, but in Bangladesh, women's reforms are increasingly a political issue, and with good reason. Earlier in May, nearly 20,000 men gathered in Dhaka to demonstrate against the Women's Affairs Reform Commission installed by the interim government to ensure equal rights for women. The reforms included criminalization of marital rape and equal inheritance and property rights for all women, bans on child marriage and an end to polygamy. This was met with resistance, with the leader of a group calling the measures suicidal and asking the government to reverse the reforms. And today, the backlash is swelling. This is perhaps a true litmus test for the UNIS government to walk the talk on the values he speaks about, or to push Bangladesh back into being a regressive state, one that fears liberation of women and not the plight they endure. Which side will he choose? Well, that only time will tell. For the first time in India's military history, women cadets marched out of the hallowed portals of the National Defence Academy, proud, fierce and unbreakable. The first batch of 17 women cadets graduated alongside 322 male counterparts today. 17 women, 17 dreams forged in discipline, sweat and resolve. They marched into history, not with banners, not with slogans, but with grit in their hearts and fire in their stride. At least 339 cadets were given degrees during the convocation ceremony of the 148th NDA course that trains cadets for the Army, Navy and Air Force. Even as the nation celebrates this moment far away from the limelight, 7 women of the border security forces have written their own chapter of bravery. 7 BSF women defended 2 forward posts for 3 days and 3 nights in the Akhnur sector of Jammu and Kashmir. That's during Operation Sindoor. The women personnel manned important positions, delivering heavy retaliatory fire on Pakistani locations. The all-women team were offered the option to withdraw as well, but they not only defended the posts, they also sent Pakistani soldiers fleeing for their lives. What makes this instance of bravery by the women soldiers even more noteworthy is the fact that this was their first active combat engagement. Some of the women personnel who engaged in direct fighting had joined the forces as recently as 2023. Their courage under fire not only saved critical posts, but also proved that the Indian women soldiers, or our very own warriors, are second to none in discipline and resolve. US President Donald Trump has accused China of violating the initial trade agreement reached earlier this month, shaking global investor confidence and sparking fresh concerns about the stability of US-China economic ties. In a fiery post on Truth Social, Trump has declared, and I quote him here, "China, perhaps not surprisingly to some, has totally violated its agreement with US. So much for being Mr. Nice Guy." So the claim comes just 2 weeks after both nations agreed to a 90-day pause on mutual tariffs, offering temporary relief to markets. That agreement was hailed as a breakthrough in easing escalating trade tensions that had resulted in steep tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars in imports. However, as of now, the White House alleges that China has failed to uphold its end of the agreement, reigniting fears of a renewed trade war. While no specific violations were detailed, officials say that the US fulfilled its commitment and that China's compliance has slowed majorly since the truce has been announced. Markets responded swiftly, with US futures going down, signaling investor unease over the possibility of renewed tariff hikes or worsening trade ties. Experts say the latest development could impact everything from consumer prices to supply chains, especially if tariff talks collapse. Talks between the two nations appear to have stalled, with officials suggesting further progress may direct talks between both the countries. Away from politics, in a personal gesture, Russia's President Vladimir Putin held a warm welcome for Ake Abe, wife of late ex-President Shinzo Abe, at the Kremlin today. Putin walked in with a large bouquet of pink roses for Shinzo Abe's widow. He also conveyed to Ake Abe how her late husband played an important role in restoring bilateral ties between the two countries. Ake Abe responded with heartfelt remarks of her own.
I saw that he was sincerely striving for the full restoration of the Russian-Japanese cooperation. He was doing a lot for that. We are very grateful to him for his position. We have always respected his work in this area, and we remember his contribution to the development of Russian-Japanese cooperation.
Today, as the main goal of my conversation, I would like to express to you my sincere gratitude for the fact that you have so actively developed a dialogue with my husband and strive to develop relations between our countries. I can say that my husband, even after the beginning of such a difficult situation related to Ukraine, was eager to meet you and had such hope.
Putin's gesture did not stop with flowers and kind words about the late former Prime Minister of Japan. After the meeting, the Russian president offered Abe his personal limousine for a ride to the iconic Bolshoi Theatre. Take a look. Kremlin said that the visit is not an official one, but Putin's gesture is reminiscent of the warm ties between Japan and Russia. During the prime ministership of Shinzo Abe, that is. Putin and Abe had good personal ties. Both held 15 summit meetings in Japan, Russia, and other global venues, reflecting their commitment to resolve key issues in Russia-Japan ties. Elon Musks Mars Dreams are colliding with NASA's Lunar Ambitions. SpaceX Starship, the rocket meant to conquer both the Moon and Mars, keeps failing spectacularly. NASA's 2027 moon landing hangs in the balance. The big question, can Musk deliver or will his vision be grounded? Take a look.
In the race to resume human trips to the moon, NASA's plans are facing a setback, a string of failures suffered by SpaceX's Starship. The world's most powerful rocket is handicapping its efforts to ferry astronauts to the lunar surface and eventually to Mars. Each failure has been more public and explosive than the last. And with every failed launch, the clock is ticking for NASA's Artemis program that aims to land astronauts near the moon's south pole by 2027. SpaceX, the titan of private spaceflight, now finds its Mars ambitions entangled with something far more immediate and pressing: NASA's bid to return humans on the moon. SpaceX owner and the world's wealthiest man, Elon Musk, says whatever the failures, every launch is a step forward as he moves ahead with more bigger rocket launches.
So we're developing some next-generation Starships, which have a number of improvements versus our current gen. So it's taller, for example, and has a better the interstage between the ship and the booster. You can see that sort of the sort of struts there. That makes it easier for the flame. Like that right there.
NASA's Artemis mission is the cornerstone of American space leadership, intended to reassert dominance over China and set the stage for future missions to Mars. The agency's plan hinges on a complex plan, launching astronauts aboard the Space Launch System and Orion capsule, docking with a modified Starship in lunar orbit, and using that Starship as a lunar lander. But this intricate choreography is at risk. SpaceX must not only perfect the Starship, but also establish orbital fuel depots and conduct uncrewed landings, milestones that remain unmet after 9 test flights. Moon was to be the stepping stone before flying off to the Mars.
It's not a repetition of Apollo. What we do here is you go to the moon to go beyond the moon. So the moon is the first step to foster and check out all our technology before we go to Mars.
The stakes could not be higher. With billions invested and national pride on the line, the pressure is mounting on both NASA and SpaceX to get it right. As the world watches, one question looms. Will Musk's Mars Dreams lift off? Or will NASA's moon mission be left waiting on the launch pad?
Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Imagine kids saving for retirement before even hitting puberty. Well, Germany's new early start pension plan might just do that. Berlin wants kids as young as 6-year-olds to start saving for retirement. It's a bold new plan that banks on time and teaches kids the value of €1 early. But is this financial head start a game changer or just pocket change? Our next report telling you more.
Germany is flipping the script on retirement by asking, why wait to save when you can start before you've even lost your first tooth? A new proposal could soon have 6-year-olds socking away cents for their golden years, a move that blends the primary education with retirement. The idea is simple. Give kids a head start with small monthly contributions into long-term savings accounts, planting the seeds of financial security before they can even spell compound interest. And in the world of investing, time isn't just money, it's magic. A few euros at age 6 can grow into a small fortune by 66, thanks to the slow and steady snowball of compounding. But it's not just about euros and interest rates, it's also about raising money-smart minds. Teaching children the basics of budgeting, saving and investing turns piggy banks into powerful tools. Early exposure to financial concepts can build habits that stick and prevent future facepalms over credit card debt or empty retirement accounts. Of course, critics argue whether this plan truly adds up. But symbolically, it's a loud and clear message. Financial literacy shouldn't be a grown-up only club. By linking playgrounds with portfolios, Germany may be setting a precedent that pays off. In the end, the lesson is timeless. It's never too early to save and never too soon to learn. Because when it comes to money, starting small and starting early isn't child's play. It's the smartest game in town. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Well, there's a new obsession sweeping the style scene, and it's not what you'd expect. Say hello to Laboo Dolls. The spiky-haired, sharp-toothed dolls are now the must-have fashion accessory. Laboo, that's the name, the elf-like doll that once lived in the niche world of collectibles, is now the crown jewel of trendsetters everywhere, from the streets of Paris to the lanes of Seoul. These toothy gremlins are stealing hearts and even headlines. From K-pop's Lisa to Bollywood's Ananya Pandey, everyone has now got a Laboo, whether it is swinging from a Chanel bag or peeking out of a Prada purse. So big is the craze that the Chinese retailer Pop Mart, the exclusive seller of Laboo dolls, has had to pause sales of these keychain-sized goblins because demand has clearly hit kiosk levels. But how did they become internet's latest sensation? The history of these dolls is not as new as the sudden craze behind acquiring them. Hong Kong-born artist Carson Leung created the Laboo dolls in 2015, inspired by Nordic fairy tales, and a decade later, they are a worldwide sensation that we are seeing today, not just in India, but also worldwide. Well, that's all that we could pack for you in today's edition of Gravitas. We're slipping into a very short break, but we're leaving you with Gravitas Worldview. Thanks for staying with us. You are watching WION The World.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Wow, folks, we all know the story.
As makers announce the release date of The Devil Wears Prada 2, we take a look at all the upcoming remakes, reboots and sequels. Dive into the world of music with a never-seen-before auction. And find out why baby blue is the color of the year. All this and much more with me, Diksha Bisla, on WION at these times.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada.